listening public, travel executives, travel council colleagues, Dr. Henderson and your team, other guests in the room. Thank you for coming. This is health is a very important matter. So we took some action back in February to have the return and destruction of this intellectual property, this data that was collected. And more so, I think our intent was to understand the intellectual property rights. And we really don't have the policy in place. So we could probably lean on you to help develop that policy, and not completely at your expense. I think we could probably refer this to Health Committee to get this policy developed, and to ensure that these rights stay within the tribe. There's other diseases, lots of other diseases here. We're having a hard time. We're sending young adults in their 20s and 30s to hospice care to meet their maker, because we're not sending them to get their transplants. Instead, we say they don't meet the subjective requirements that someone made, and so we're sending them to hospice care to die, and it's really bad because it shouldn't be that way. And then at the same time, we have 28 million carryover at IHS. We got 7.5 million saved so far this year in healthcare, and this is not the right path to be on. I'd like to see if is there any way we can start getting some health and wellness centers? I mean, and then any way we can start getting some we own the grocery stores on this reservation. Why do we have high sugar, high sodium, 99 cents here, 90 cents there, and then the vegetables are $21.99? And it's just insane. It's like we don't want our members to thrive and to be healthy here. And we have 7 bars on the reservation that are open 6 days a week. We have 7 gyms on the reservation, ironically, and they're locked. They're 8 to 3, and outside of that, the doors are locked. So, these are some very serious challenges that we face, and we're not doctors, and we need the doctors to continue to do their due diligence and be able to bring these matters to our attention, real solutions, and start making these great changes. So, Chairman LeBeau, do you want us to make that motion to refer that intellectual property to Health Committee, or do we need to take action to rescind that other action that returns and destroys this data?
Action and council that was passed to send them back and destroy them.
I'll make a motion to rescind that action.
We got a motion by Mr. Rousseau, second by Mr. Brinksplenny.
And then after this motion, I'd like to, we do need to develop that intellectual property, or what it'd be called, whatever data, and be able to preserve it, safeguard it, utilize it, and let's change these things. Healing them. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman LeBeau, can I get the floor for Jill Kessler?
Sure. Mrs. Hall and Mr. Underwoods. Yeah, Mrs. Hall, go ahead.
Chante washte na pechi usapi. We chakpi tokahe we imachi api. Washichu chaje Francine Hall. I greet you with a firm handshake and a warm heart. Thank you for coming. I also serve as chair of the Tribal Health Committee. So I have some questions here. You talked about 3 proteins and you mentioned one, annexin. What are the other 2?
If I may, my thanks as well for having us here. Annexin is the one that shows the most reactivity, so most of the extra diagnosis comes from annexin. And then there are two others that are involved in citronation. I think they're called PAD. I keep forgetting the name, but they're a smaller effect. But together they do add some additional diagnostic value. But annexin's the main one.
Annexin, okay.
And by the
thank
way,
you.
I might just point out that there could be more to come in the future. These are the three we've discovered so far from the data we've got.
Okay. One of my constituents asked me to ask, now you've done this in the lab and you have used the humans have conducted the studies. He asked about AI. Have you used artificial intelligence in the process of this, identifying?
So may I? Okay. So to be honest, we don't need that right now. We need
Okay.
just very simple tests, who's reacting and who's not. But down the road, you could set up very sophisticated machine learning predictive scores. That would be a goal, to predict who's going to get RA, but we're a long ways from that. We're not even
Okay.
close to that.
I think since I've only been on the health committee since, I think September. So I'm fairly new to, these issues. But in the short time, one of the things that in talking with the people, Missouri Breaks, who actually conducted the study here on Cheyenne River, there's an informed consent. And in that informed consent that everybody signs to consent, for their sample to be used, and when it's done for that particular purpose, when it's their sample has been used for that particular specific purpose, then in that informed consent, it states that the sample would be destroyed.
Well,
Isn't that correct?
Okay.
Okay, can only be used 5 years after August of 2017. Okay, so
Correct, but it doesn't say destroyed. But that's not the issue.
Okay,
That's not the issue. I support tribal sovereignty. You as decision makers could decide just what has been motioned, to rescind your previous motion for the return and destruction of the samples and the data. Rescind that, and then we could have the discussion about, okay, if we do that and we wish to do anything else with these samples, what must we do? Technically, we should contact all these sale participants and reconsent them. That's what ideally we would do, and given the opportunity, that's what we will do.
I would think that that's probably what we should do, since everybody, when they went through this study in the beginning, signed that with the knowledge that this was what was going to happen, and they agreed, to those terms. So, to protect the rights of the individual that was involved in the study, I think we need to. I am, when you talk about the revenue, and my understanding is this would be used universally, you said, to diagnose rheumatoid arthritis. And since your preliminary studies show that it has a high chance of success in not only finding that in the native population, but it increases the results in the non-Indian population. so it would really have value to the world. And given that, I don't think that we understood from the outset that something like this would present itself, this opportunity would present itself, because I think initially we thought, using the samples from our people to find out more, because we are a forgotten population in the United States, okay? And all the studies, et cetera, are done of non-Indian population, and sometimes those don't work for us. But now, here comes the opportunity to really study us and find out what those factors are and how we can combat those when we really know what's going on. So I'm excited about this opportunity, and I think that I would go along with my colleague, not to destroy the samples, but I still think that we need to go back and we need to get the consent from the participants in this study to really be ethical. So, thank you.
Mr. Underwoods.
Pramalo chunga chasha laya hi. No yate ki tukai on gixi up the hecha one. That's leon gaka ki only tukai on gixi up the hecha. Le doing gaka ki le workshop ki le skawi chasha ata uta ya workshop. As la kulia ki Wasloya ki leo hap. Na he dokis ki mpetiwa oyati ki wastep te hechise. Yukstamp te hecha na washi chump te hecha. Le nangapi ki le. Na leskawi chasha hunch dokis ki washi chump sloashne. Na he oyati ki tokaya. What it said is, just briefly, is, you research people. I said, scary tie, you white people are really intelligent people. And you can see it in the R&D, the research and development. And they come out with stuff like this. This vaccination playbook that HHS, CDC came out, gave it to HHS, ran it down to IHS to tribal governments and gave us 5 days to respond to it. In here they call it a Beers report. And these good guys here, they were fighting this virus that came out, this man-made virus, this bioweapon made in the lab, gain of function, or whatever they call it, These guys come up with these spike proteins that you're talking about. 3 of them, S1, on the vaccine and in the virus itself. They discovered that. And these guys are being persecuted. Their license being taken away. And all they're doing is fighting this man-made virus. Unbelievable, how some people could get away with things. But my concern is this artificial intelligence. Right now, you hear some of these candidates running for that Oval Office that they're going to restrict this AI. But other countries like China, and it's already, they weaponize it. Everything's being weaponized at that molecular level. Like these spike proteins, just like these 3 in our fingers. The first one breaks into the atom. The other 2 go in there, search and destroy. When they find that DNA and crack, so we call that Wakan. Well, Ka is your vein system, your blood system. And right now, the United States is looking at, and some of the things I said in our language was that we have a knowledge. Our people have a knowledge. And right now, they're looking at it as a traditional ecological knowledge. That means connections to these plant life, all of this connection. That's medicine. When the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration were going around, 2 doctors globally looking for the cure for cancer. And they came to DC during winter session with National Congress of American Indians, and they were running it by us guys about, we went all over the world and was looking for indigenous knowledge, and we figured out that there's indigenous people here in America that you may have knowledge to help find a cure for cancer. And at the same time, the World Health Organization was there, advising the tribal government representatives to protect your intellectual property rights, because there's elements out there to exploit that. Example would be the White Mountain Apache, when they used their blood to find out. Anthropologists say we come from the Bering Strait and, settled this area. That's what they were trying to prove. White Mountain Apache won that lawsuit. That was the intent of that sample, to be exploited in that fashion, to go against us as the real people here, the original people here. And because of the white man's exploit and the Chinese exploit in this country, they created this virus that's, no vaccine ain't gonna work. The experts will tell you that if this is a gain of function, then vaccines won't work. Biden would be the prime example. So we should look at inflammation. That's really the cause of human physical man-made cancers, is inflammation. Just like RA, that inflammation in the joints and stuff. So it seems like this Jennifer Doudna, who received the Nobel Prize Science Award about 10, 12 years ago, coming up with what they call the CRISPR technology. Are anybody familiar with the CRISPR?
Mr. Edwards, we got a list and we got guests.
Anyway, for the record and for the Tichwan out there who I'm speaking for, is the Tichwan out there, the real people. We have great concerns, because the way our plants, our medicine is being totally disregarded. But the United States is looking for that knowledge now. So how can we build a bridge, and knowing that this CRISPR technology can do great things, and then it could do a lot of depopulation type of stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Edwards.
But
Mr. Edwards.
the thing that I wanted to know is what Ron brought up on that intelligent property rights. We need to have that protected. But what exactly, when Ms. Hall asked you those 3 properties, you didn't really specify them? And those exosomes, can you describe what exosomes are?
I can, but we're not really studying exosomes in this. But if you want me to address the IP, what should happen next is that these new proteins we discovered should be filed for IP by the tribe to get patent protection for this. That would be the next logical step.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we need to protect it, but I was just hoping that we could do a little more. Maybe when we get the understanding here, because there's not too many familiar with CRISPR. You need to be familiar with that. You need to know what's going on. And the attack that's Wakan now, that Wakan that's being attacked, we need to stop it.
Okay.
I think he might be the right individuals, Dr. Henderson. But do you know where I'm coming from? Palamalo.
Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone, executives, council, Dr. Henderson, colleagues, general public listening. We need to clarify the motion on the floor. My colleague, Mr. Russo, talked about the intellectual and data, but the action coming from Health Committee was on the biological samples, which always belong to the participants in these studies. And those samples come with ethics. And you look at the ethics in clinical research, and you come to informed consent. And for research to be ethical, the participants need to be informed. And they were informed that after a certain period of time, their samples would be returned. And after that time is expired, now those samples are expired and should be returned. That's what the action coming from Health Committee was. So to retain those samples past their time of use is outside of the realm of informed consent and is unethical to do in research. And there's another clause here that has respect for potential and enrolled subjects. So to retain their samples, their biological samples, shows disrespect for their rights. And it needs to come back and follow through with the way they were informed it was going to happen with the research. So we probably need to clarify the action. And I won't support allowing them to retain the samples because that is not my decision to make. That is each and every participant's decision to make, whether they want to reconsent or follow through the way that they were informed at the beginning. But I think we need to hear from our tribal members that know more about this than I do. Ms. Kessler, Ms. Enright, whenever the chairman's ready to let them speak. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Okay. Good morning, council, executive, general public, and Dr. Henderson. Nice to see you again. So my question, my doctors have to start looking at autoimmune issues regarding my health now. And rheumatoid arthritis is just one component of the spectrum of autoimmune issues that can happen for detection. So I'm glad you found the protein issues, and that's what they want to look at. So what's the better diagnostic approach to really, because if we're not being properly diagnosed, we're not being properly treated. And if we don't have the proper information before the doctors to do that treatment plan for the patient, then you're doing a disservice to the actual patient that's being asking for services. And we do need rheumatologists like Avira needs to be really reached out to because they have a lot of data over there as well. A lot of my family members have autoimmune issues and a lot of them are clustered with Avira and Sioux Falls. So they have a lot of information regarding autoimmune issues and the spectrum of honestly looking at it. So that's my concern, is being properly diagnosed, because a lot of our people are having these issues and it can mimic diseases out there. So they're treating symptoms and giving them the wrong medication, and when they're not really providing the medication to address the autoimmune issues in itself. So I'm glad you're doing this, but I think further study needs to be done with the protein and proper treatment, so to properly provide treatment and the medication for it. But thank you.
Well, thank you for those comments. Our discussion is mostly centered upon how using these 3 new proteins can increase the diagnostic effectiveness, with our relatives who have, symptoms. We've talked about annexin, a specific protein. If we've found that annexin is so strongly related to inflammation when we never knew that before, you can probably think this could be a new therapy, an annexin inhibitor, a drug that would inhibit annexin. Our approach is focused on rheumatoid arthritis, and it's stayed there this whole time. But the approach we've used could be just as easily used in the lupus space, in the scleroderma space, Sjogren's syndrome space, or across the autoimmune spectrum.
Mrs. Kessler? And then we can vote after that, I believe. So go ahead.
Apentuashte, Jill Kessler, Imachiapi na Powi Chakbi Otani Wimie, Itazip Cholakota Hema from I don't know how to say Armstrong County in Lakota. Somebody look that up. So I'm a clinical research specialist at Missouri Breaks, and how Missouri Breaks fits into the discussion on the sale samples and the data that has been found that these two individuals have presented to you today is that we're the people that, I wasn't even employed there. They're the people that did the actual research, consented the actual tribal members. And SAIL is a multi-phased study. So specifically, Mr. Rose was correct. The information that Dr. Henderson presented to you today is inaccurate. At no time did anybody ever ask for the return of intellectual data. Nobody has to return the intellectual data because that's owned by the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, even if it's housed outside of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. What was asked for was the return of SAIL-1 participants' biological samples and or the confirmation of their destruction. And I really have to apologize to the people, the entire Oyate, for wasting your time on this on council floor, because now it sounds like this discussion's going towards, well, we need to reconsent those 200 people that participated in SAIL-1. That was a solution that was presented to the PIs back in about September of 2022. And they have dragged their feet this long, 18 months. That's the reason Missouri Breaks came to Health Committee. That's the reason we came to council floor, is because we had 200, well, there was 197 tribal members of the 200 enrolled in SAIL-1 whose biological samples were not being destroyed or returned per the consent, which is a legally binding document. And as far as I know, the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe's laws do not say that you own the individual samples of your citizens. So that ownership retains with us, the citizens. SAIL-1 has been in existence since about 2012, and SAIL-2 came into existence in about 2018 or 19. So these gentlemen and their research team have had nearly a decade to find these participants and reconsent them to continue to move their work forward. So I really do apologize that it has come to this, that we all have to waste our time and put the people's real business aside to figure out a conclusion for this. Thank you.
With all due respect, I take issue with your alleging that we've drug our feet. Tribe, you have been bent over the barrel during this pandemic in a level of emergency for more than 24 months.
Chairman, I'd like to get to Corporal Monty.
We have replied to each and every letter that has been sent to us in a timely manner. Our last two letters on March 4th and March 8th let you know that we're happy if the decision is final to return the samples. Please give us specific physical address to send them to. That was on March 4th and March 8th. I just received a letter on Tuesday at my office in Rapid City, dated November 27th, that finally gave us a physical address to return samples to if it's decided they are to be returned. And we thank you for that.
Hey, Madam Secretary, please call for the vote.
Can you clarify that motion?
Restate the motion.
The motion is to rescind the council action from February 2023, which came from the Health Committee. And it is to send letter to Stanford to return biological samples of the sale project as they have refused. That was approved on council on February 16th. Bryce Sendowitz.
I'm not clear on that, Chairman. We're rescinding the resolution?
Motion.
There's a motion in February.
I just read it. Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, could you repeat that again, please?
Uh-huh.
Again, the motion is to rescind the tribal council action from February 2023 coming from the Health Committee report. And council approved it on February 16th. And it's to send letter to Stanford to return biological samples of the sale project as they have refused. Steve Moran.
Yes.
Ted Knight Jr.
No.
John Kessler.
No.
Kenrick DePreez. Sharon Lee.
No.
Mary Miller.
No.
Kelsey Haskell.
No.
Thad Rose.
No.
Derek Bartlett. Absent. Francine Hall.
Yes.
Joe Bringsplenny. Bob Walters. Ronald Russo. Tuffy Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
It's 6 yes, 8 no, 0 abstain, 1 absent. Motion fails. Council, Ms. Holler, did you have something?
I just wanted to say that it sounds like, okay, so we're not rescinding that resolution, right? That's the action of the council. So that resolution says that they're going to be returned to us and they will be destroyed. Okay. Given the information that they gave us today, it seems like a remedy to that would be to do a reconsent. And how difficult would that be for these, and we're talking about the 197 samples, right? Is that what we're, okay. How difficult would it be to contact those people that own those samples, that gave those samples, blood samples, and do another consent. I'm asking how difficult would that be? Can I imagine who would do that? Would it be Missouri Breaks? Or would that be your office or your, Dr. Henderson, your people?
To your first question, 210 participants. In a reconsent a decade later, we should be able to find three quarters of them, about 150 of them, I think. And who would do that? We could make a plan for who would do that. It would be either the Black Hills Center for American Indian Health or possibly Missouri Breaks.
The other question I have, Mr. Chairman, is, whenever we give informed consent, and I'm a participant in the Strong Heart, and I've been since, I think, from the beginning. And as a participant in those longitudinal studies, we're informed that the data, the whole idea is, again, we go back to our Lakota value, our Lakota values, and that is, whatever we can do to help the people so that the people may live. And that's the reason why, we underwent these studies and participated in them. Because the data that comes but they might be used to help those that are coming behind me. And when you do those longitudinal studies, the idea is that they're going to take that data and they're going to keep building on that, refining it, because when you do a study, you find that you're finding, there might be something that comes out of those that warrants further study. And so the way it was explained to me is that, this is sort of like an ongoing one that keeps going on, because as they find things and they refine that research. And again, we're squabbling here because something wasn't followed, or it wasn't explained correctly, and it's being stored. Now we're fighting over this. And like Jill Kessler said, this shouldn't have come here, because all these protocols, a resolution was passed. It went up through the layers to get approved, and followed all these research protocols, Great Plains, IHS, IRB, all of this, we've gone through that. And then now, I don't know, there seems to have been developed some issue here. And I'm not quite sure what's going on in terms of, but it sounds to me like the participants are kind of caught in the middle. And as a participant in the Strong Heart study, I recognize I've been informed, and it may not have been in writing, but I've been informed that these longitudinal studies, like I explained, are when a finding, they're going to keep going on, and we're not the only ones being studied. There are other tribes in the nation that they're doing these research studies with. And now, they've come upon something that is really valuable from from this study. And we passed a resolution back in 2019. This body passed a resolution to to continue with researching. So anyway, if somebody could explain to me, it seems to me like we've got you and we've got Missouri Breaks and we've got this biodata that's housed here. And somehow you guys are, the three of you are organizations. It seems to me that you are kakishaing one another. And I want to know what's going on. And I guess you guys are the only ones that can answer that. Thank you.
My apologies, Dr. Henderson. I know great ideas. Here on the Shining River Sioux Tribe, we like to plan. We plan a lot. We know it's killing us, but then we make these subjective rules because we have tribal sovereignty. We can do that. So we subjectively create rules, and like for a 20-year-old that's got cirrhosis, instead of letting them get a transplant or being considered for transplant, we don't even build a treatment center. We're dragging our feet on that for going on 10 years now. We got even new leadership came in. Now they're dragging their feet now, and they want to build a state-of-the-art trailer park treatment center. It's a bunch of module trailers that they pull in, and it's going to be the greatest trailer park module treatment center in the state, next to the trailer.
Mr. Russo, we
areas.
got a lot of work to do.
I agree. So, but it's upsetting. So
Okay.
I'd like to see this development, Chairman, of this
We have
policy.
guests.
I'd like to see
Let's
this
talk to the
development,
guests.
development of the policy.
Do you
I've
have
got
anything
members
else for
dying in my
Dr.
district because they
Anderson?
can't get yeah, that was it. So we can't even get doctors to work at IHS, Chairman. We just ran one off.
We got guests, Mr. Russo. Let's address them.
So can Dr. Henderson help us develop a policy for the future intellectual property rights of this data and et cetera? If so, I'd like to entertain that motion.
Yes, I would be happy to help my relatives do that. It's essential that this tribe develop a public health ordinance and statutes and incorporate them so that issues like this largely won't need to come to council. We'll know what to do, right? We'll know what we can do and how to do it, including intellectual property.
You done? Mrs. Hall, do you want to put that on the health committee agenda? Let's do a referral to the health committee, and these issues can be readdressed at
Motion to refer, Chairman.
motion by Mr. Kessler, second by Ms. Lee, to refer to health committee and to add the policy on the agenda. All in favor, raise your hand. We got
Chairman.
13 yes, 1 not voting, motion carries.
Chairman, discussion on that.
Hang on, hang on. Dr. Anderson, we thank you for coming today. We thank you for bringing your team. We look forward to working with you on the policy. Salamaya.
Lila Wopila Tonka. Thank you, relatives.
Dr. Henderson, this is addressed to you with this referral. Asking IHS what they do with
Council,
our
let's
blood,
take
blood
5
samples.
minutes, Council.
They say they destroyed the blood samples, so you ask for the policy. They don't give you the policy. So, Chairman, you think you can get that policy? You ask IHS what they do with our blood. They say they destroy it. So they say, well, let us look at your policy, and they won't give it to us. So if they want to, IHS, if they want to look at something, we should look at what they do, what they're saying they do, but they don't show their policy. So we should get that policy and put it on a tape.
Good. Council, let's get started again. We got the next information session here with the on the Missouri River Bridge, and we have a guest, Secretary Junt. We'll give him our time and attention at this time. Go ahead, go ahead, Secretary. Okay, guys, we're starting up again.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, council members, executives, and officials. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you this morning. Our main emphasis here is to discuss as Mr. Chairman talked about, the Missouri River crossing in Forest City with US Highway 212. I want to make sure that you completely understand that we have still a lot of data to gather and a lot of work to look at relative before we make any final decision on this. So we're very preliminary still looking at this, and this is just a great opportunity for us to get your input. We have a handout that has been provided to you. And a couple things first. So I realize that this structure is not only very important for us, but it's very important for you. And I know your tribal members and all of the different things that is used, especially economic development and everything else. So again, we're wanting to collaborate with you on eventually making a final decision on which alignment we eventually will end up with. But again, we still have a lot of work to do. I did pass out a small gift, an ice scraper there, just to remind everybody the importance of safety. We have been blessed so far that the winter's been very mild compared to what last year was, and I know we all remember that. But again, as you use these, remember to keep your vehicles and everything else safe, and remember that the safety that we all need to address as we're driving on the highways. I also want to acknowledge that we have received your letters, the two letters that was submitted to us, both on US 212 between No Hard and the rodeo grounds, as well as a speed limit near the school. And we have those. We will, again, continue to bring you in on those discussions, eventually identify what the final scope on that. But again, we've got those, and we will be working with you as we move forward with that. I have quite a bit of staff that's in the back here. Once we get done with this topic, if there's other state highway discussions that you want to do, Mr. Chairman, we're here to help answer those questions. But at this point in time, my Director of Planning and Engineering, Mike Beam, he'll go through some of the criteria and maybe a little bit of the background as far as where we're at with this project right now. And then eventually, again, having a discussion with you today as well as in the future on some of the things that we're looking at to get your input before we do make that final decision. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn this over to Mr. Beam.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council and transportation stakeholders that are here today and listening online. Our transportation system is a very interconnected system that allows us a lot of different things, getting to school, getting to healthcare, and it's a vital component of our lives. What you see in front of you, hopefully you have the map in front of you. It's got multiple colors in there. I would like to note that there are no alternatives that have been eliminated at this point in time. We're trying to get input from folks and our stakeholders in the transportation area, trying to determine as we move forward which alternatives can be narrowed down. Our goal is to hold a public meeting here sometime in late winter, early spring time frame, as we have an opportunity to narrow down some of these alternatives. As you can see on your map, those green lines are the alternatives that we're looking at. They're very wide, so they're approximately a half a mile in width, so no particular route has been identified on there. But again, just intended to provide some preliminary information. There's a lot of good colors on there. If you're taking a look at the riverbank itself, the red, the orange, and the green, what those are indicating are areas where we see significant geotechnical related items. So we're seeing failures in the slope or things over time. Being familiar with the Missouri River area, of course, there's different areas that see more slides than others. So the red is indicative of those areas that are more significant than those that are in yellow and green. Essentially, there's 5 alternatives that are in front of you today. The first one is essentially the one that goes near the existing location, and that one is termed the central alignment. And the other 4 alternatives are just parallels of the north and south alignment. So you see north alignment 1 and north alignment 2, south alignment 1 and 2 as well. Again, the intent of this project is to replace a bridge that was built in 1958. That bridge is about 4,600 feet long, a very long structure, one of the major east-west connectors we have in this area across the Missouri River Bridge. We did a lot of work on that bridge back in about 1980 to replace the deck and do some geotech work in that area as well. The structure itself is safe, so I wanted to make sure folks know that. It's not as if it's in an unsafe condition at all. We do inspections every year. The bridge is still safe, but like anything, especially our bridges, when they get to be about that 70 to 75 years old, they're in need of replacement. It's no longer viable for us to try to rehabilitate those. So this structure is kind of in that place. Timeframes for reconstruction, right now we're looking maybe 2029, 2030 timeframe. Again, we're early in the process, as Secretary John Ted mentioned. The next sheet that you have is actually a matrix. So it takes a look at different elements, and if you can see, it's got pie charts on there, and some pie is eaten more in other areas than others. The pie chart's intended to help identify more preferable or less preferable as it relates to aspects such as safety, travel time, the geotechnical and the soil conditions out there, the environmental impacts, the physical elements, and of course, the stakeholder input as well. So just briefly, as we look at safety, overall, for a build alternative, when something gets built out there, we are looking to make it up to new design standards. So we'd have a wider bridge than what we currently have here today. It's, I think, about 26 foot in width right now as you drive across, so relatively narrow. Be a wider bridge with flatter curves and flatter hills coming into it. For a travel time, that's just essentially if you're starting at this point and going to the next point, which alternative is more efficient for you to get there. So again, it takes a look at the one that's more efficient. We're not talking hours here. We're probably talking seconds or minutes in delay time related to the different alternatives that are out there. The geotechnical, I hit on that very briefly. Again, it takes a look at historical geotechnical concerns in different areas. Again, as we build a bridge today, we are looking at 75 to 100-year design life on that structure. So we're looking at a location that would have relatively few geotechnical concerns relating to it. In looking at the cultural resources, the 4F and 6F, again, very preliminary information relating to cultural impacts. Any alternatives as we continue to go through, we'll continue to include cultural components along with any historic components as well. We have had an opportunity to visit with Mr. Vance regarding some concerns or some areas of concern out there, and we're continuing to coordinate with Mr. Vance as well. Looking at the biological and the regulated materials, you can see generally overall, relatively few regulated materials or concerns with air and noise, relatively less dense population base in those areas. Community impacts comes into play as well. One thing I would like to mention is we look at replacement of this bridge. It's likely to be the longest bridge in South Dakota. So you may have the longest bridge in South Dakota. The current one is down on Highway 44, the Platte Winter Bridge. It's a little bit longer than this one, but as we looked at some of the alternatives that are out there, or all the alternatives that are out there, we would anticipate this to be the longest bridge in the state. So something neat, possibly. Again, continuing through property impacts, that's just impacts to properties with new alignments or new construction. Access impacts, how could it be constructed, and what are some constructability for our partners at Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe for feedback regarding alternatives, as well as we continue on trying to narrow down alternatives on potential crossing locations for this very important bridge. With that, Mr. Chairman, I do believe the information I've provided you should help to answer any questions, but we'd love to answer any questions you may have regarding this and also take input.
Mr. Russo, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. I see the central alignment. You guys kind of scored that the highest on the rubrics or the screening matrix, you called it. I could support that action. You know, we got the community of Switzer. They do a lot of business there at Bob's Resort, a lot of employment opportunity there for the membership. You know, the one thing I always thought was, you know, it'd be nice to see that south alternate alignment, because we are planning some development in Fort Pierre, the tribe is, and you know, this would help kind of cut travel time down for that Fort Pierre area. But I do think that, you know, in the future, it would be nice to see maybe a faster route from Pierre to Eagle Butte along our route, BIA Route 8. It's kind of you know, one of the questions I had was, you know, why don't we get 1804 on the reservation? And if we would get 1804 and you guys would just pave that That would lift a huge burden off of our roads department, having to maintain that very dangerous road there. It's very dangerous, and then when it rains and stuff, it's just as bad. But and would that be the 1804, the Lewis and Clark? Have you guys ever done any development or planning on having that? What is it called? The rural scenic route for Lewis and Clark through the reservation? Has that ever been a topic on the table, and why we don't already get that? You have an answer for that?
Mr. Chairman, maybe just hit on a few of the points. Thank you very much for your thoughts. As we look at the matrix, I wanted to just make one additional point. The column that's on the far right, that's the public input component of things. So we'll need to take a look at all the different aspects as we go through before anything's ranked out higher or lower than others. So you can see there's different impacts for different things. So the column on the far right, I apologize. If you're looking at that, that does not mean the DOT's preference on anything. That's what we heard from public feedback on the initial meeting as we move forward. As it relates to connection to pier, although it's not 1806 connection all the way up along the river, I would like to note that Highway 63 project is moving along quite well. We're hoping that can get built in 27, 28 timeframe. For those of you that are familiar with that, that's been a concern for Tribe. And we've also been trying to work as quickly as we can on that. That project is moving forward. We still have some things that we're trying to coordinate through on that project, although it is not 1806. I know that's a very significant north-south route up to Eagle Butte and other areas. As far as scenic routes, we have not been looking at adding any additional scenic routes to the state highway system. Recently, we have received some requests, and we have a policy in place for folks if they're looking to designate a scenic route, and that's definitely something that we can share with you. Generally, our volumes are one things that are going to drive new roads as we're looking to build new roads. When our volumes get to a point where we need to replace a road or build a new one, those are things that are generally driving it. Then, of course, safety. Thank you.
I just wanted to go back on that. So the 1806, my apologies, I was thinking 1804. I always get the two confused. But so you said there is currently no 1806 that goes through the reservation? Well, obviously not, but I mean, why not? That was kind of one of the ones I wanted you to elaborate more specifically on, because I see 1804 goes through on the east side, and 1806 connects back up in the Mobridge area, but it's gone. I mean, we don't have it at all. So why can't that just go through, follow our, through Blackfoot, through Armstrong County? That would lift a huge burden off of our severely underfunded BIA roads department and tribal TTP monies that we receive if you guys would just fund that 1804 or 1806 project through the eastern boundary of the reservation.
Mr. Chairman, we can definitely take a look at it. I believe 1806 terminates right now up north of Chantier Creek, if I remember correctly, and then different jurisdictions take over. There's kind of a mixed bag of how 1804 and 1806 start and end along the entire river corridor. 1804, of course, you're familiar with that. It does kind of go north up, and then it connects back over, and then goes, so it shares highway names in certain things, but we'll definitely take a look at that and get back to you.
Okay, the last thing I have before I let go of the floor is I would like to see planning considerations in conjunction with your 1806, also a bridge that bridges us closer to the Fort Pierre property that we have and that we're developing. So I don't know if the project's gonna, if the project planning is gonna take a long time, it'd be nice to start the bridge planning as well, and that would help lessen travel time to from our major capital city, which is Eagle Butte, to the state's capital city as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have Ms. Hall, Ms. Haskell, Mr. Underwoods.
Yes, thank you for coming. When you look at your matrix, the abutment soil stability, corridor soil stability, the regulated materials, air, noise, and long-term maintenance all are more preferable for North Alternative 2 alignment. And we all know, the present location and how no matter what you do, you terraced the hills and yet, you know, we're still getting that slide. And that's kind of dangerous, you know, especially when you get to the top of that hill and then all of a sudden you really have to slow down when you're coming over those bumps. And it's always been a concern of mine because there are no guardrails, you know, right there by the before you get onto the bridge. And I often think, gosh, you know, somebody could have an accident and just go flying over those without the guardrails, you know, just flying over the that embankment. But this north alternative too, I remember when we did have a bridge that crossed over this area, that north alternative too, and way back in the 50s, you know, and that's how we got to Gettysburg from the reservation, was going that way. I think a lot of my colleagues probably don't remember that. They're too young. But, you know, when you look at all of these that you've rated here, you know, I'm concerned about the long-term maintenance, because it seems like the roads on the DOT roads on the reservation just are not maintained well. You know, when we have snow or ice or whatever, they once we hit, like if we're going to pier and we hit that Cheyenne River Bridge or up on top there, then the roads, you can tell they've been maintained, you know, and especially in the wintertime, there's sand, you know, put out if it's icy, it's cleared, you know, if it's snow, if we've got snow on the highway, it's been cleared down to the Cheyenne River Bridge, and then it stops. So anything north of that Cheyenne River Bridge, you know, our roads are not maintained. And forget about Highway 212 from Eagle Butte down to the eastern edge of the reservation. I mean, that's you're kind of on your own for as far as safety. So I'm looking at, you know, the long-term maintenance and the soil stability. You know, none of this sliding kind of stuff, because we know that area right near the river, you know, there's shale banks. And I remember as a kid, down by the old beef camp, which was right on the edge of the reservation, right near the river, we used to go play on those shale banks because you could just slide down, you know, get cardboard and sit on them and just, you know, slide down those shale banks. So I know that area, you know, is there's going to be slide. So that would be mine, and of course safety and all these others. So I think north alternative to alignment, and then you're still going to, you know, 1804 is well maintained up to Highway 212, and then we go, you know, to 1804 if we, you know, one way to get down to pier from the eastern edge of the reservation. Now, I'm in agreement with Council Representative Russo when he talked about 1806. We often wondered why it just kind of ended there in Mobridge, or, you know, above Mobridge there. But you could extend it starting on what we call Red Top Hill, and then build. And that could be I don't know how you market 1806 if it's, you know, but it's Lewis and Clark, you know. I'm going to share with you a blonde moment I had. Anyway, we were driving on 1804. My husband and I, we were, you know, used that road a lot when we were living on the east end of the reservation. And I was really in deep thought about Lewis and Clark and how they traversed up the river. And I thought, geez, this is all land. So I asked my husband, and I said, now, so did they pick up their canoes, their boat, and carry it away? That's why I said that was my blonde moment. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Haskell, Mr. Underwoods, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming today. With our Swiftbird residents and our route to Pier, I think that the central alignment and the southern alignments are the only way to go. I don't think the north alignment does anything for us or our people. I do understand the central alignment is not geologically, it looks like the best place, but that's where I hope it would stay. Furthermore, when you guys do construction you guys are doing North 63, my sister died on that road, so before you guys tear down, could you make sure to notify the families, because there's multiple markers up there. All right, thank you.
Mr. Underwoods.
Yeah, according to your less preferable and more preferable, seems like the central alignment is what your data is showing here. So what exactly would that take to do the central alignment?
Mr. Chairman.
Exactly what they're doing in Pier, I meant as an example.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. I believe the central alignment would keep it relatively close to the existing bridge. One of the things we've heard so far during outreach, and I assume it's an important thing here, is to maintain the bridge during construction. So the bridge is not out for, it could be 2 years or more, depending upon how long it takes to build a bridge. So the central alignment, one of the thoughts is to build it parallel or nearly close to the existing bridge somewhere, so that the existing bridge can remain in service until the new bridge is built, similar to what's being done in Fort Pier right now.
So to me, I think that would be according to your data, but it seemed like the central alignment would be the way to go, and that's kind of where we're going towards, huh, Chairman? Trying to pick a spot there. Is there like a little survey for Blackfoot and Swiftbird and them to see what they say? Phenomenal.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, Mr. Treasurer, Council, General Public, Department of Transportation. Thank you very much for coming. I had to ask Kelsey what this was. I thought this was a back scratcher or something, but I guess it's for your windows, I guess. But I support and I'm sure my colleagues, and it affects my district, me and Mr. Russo's district, and it makes sense just to leave it where it's at. With all the technology in the world, I know the soil there is unstable, but there's ways around that. I mean, we putting guys on the moon, and we can't haul good soil into a place to build a bridge. We should be able to do that. Just because, to the, not very far to the east there, that's Old Shine Agency. A lot of our family, friends were born there, went to school there, grew up there. And so I'm in favor of leaving it right where it's at. Things are in place already. I'm sure easements are already done for that, and it'd be easy to get the easements because it's an existing place. So I just make sense for everybody. That's what I'm in favor for, but I think it needs to be referred to Roads Committee to draft a resolution, so I'll make that motion to refer, Chairman.
Second.
We got a motion by Mr. Thompson to refer to Rhodes, second by Mr. Russo. All in favor, raise your hand. 14 yes, 0 no, motion carries. Do I have another comment from any of the council members? Mr. Brinks Planning, go ahead.
Could I give one of our tribal members my time to respond?
Part of that resolution, also send it back to district to get input, especially the Swift. They need that input. Nobody's talking to them. That's who's going to be most impacted on where these bridges will be located. So don't forget the people.
Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, general public, tribal council, executives. Thank you, DOT, for coming in today. I just had a question. If one of the alternative routes, 2 or 1, was selected, what would be the process for the abandoned stretch of highway?
Mr. Chairman? Yes. So if there's access still needed, and if we just take a look at south or north, I guess it wouldn't matter. There'd be a portion of old Highway 212 essentially that would still remain in place. So we'd assume that there'd still be access to the properties along there through some route. It could possibly remain what we call a termini route for no particular purpose other than for access. What it could look like depends upon and the number of vehicles and folks that are going there and using that facility. So it could be a gravel road. I guess we don't know yet. We're so early on in the process. I think that'll be something we need to look at. What could it look like and what would happen?
So I guess that's kind of my question is maintenance and upkeep. What would be the process?
Mr. Chairman? Generally, if it's under the jurisdiction of the state, we would be responsible for maintenance of that particular route. We don't have very many subsections, I guess, if you want to call it. Usually our roads will travel through or end up at another intersection, but we do have a few of those. 1806P is one that I recall. We also have 1804s and 1806s, which do terminate in certain areas, and we continue to maintain those to ensure that there's access to them. We will at times ask if there's a local government that would like to take over responsibility and maintenance for those facilities. So I'd envision that would be a process that we'd have to consider as well.
Sure. I just asked because we do got a lot of people that live down there, and then we've got a recreational area there as well. And however we can get it that the state would still maintain that would be preferable to us, I'm sure. Thank you.
Mrs. Hall, go ahead.
I have one last question, and that's what type of bridge are you going to put in?
Mr. Chair, that has not been determined yet. I think it's going to be a function of which alignment is being used and additional work that we're going to need to do for the water depth and try to find the most cost-effective alternative that's out there. Whether a truss bridge like we have right now would go in place or not, I don't know that would or could happen, but it'll be something that we'll have to be looking at depending upon the alignment that's chosen out there. I'd envision that'll be a part of future public meetings as well as we continue to narrow down the alternatives. Once a preferred alternative is identified, here are some structure options. So to continue to keep folks involved in the process.
What about a beam bridge?
Mr. Chairman? Generally, a lot of the structures and bridges that we're building right now are essentially like that. The one going in Pierre and Fort Pierre right now is that way. It's a steel girder or steel beam bridge, and then we just build the roadway on top of it. You're familiar with 63 Cheyenne River Crossing, again, similar to that. We haven't done a lot of truss structures here recently. There's been a lot of advances, and I think there was a comment made on that recently just with design and things that can be done with different materials. So in areas where trusses were required before, there's new materials that can be used that don't require a truss system. But trusses still do exist here in South Dakota. We just really haven't been building many of those recently.
Okay, the reason I'm concerned about the type of bridge, right now, if we are to do any kind of business with East River, particularly with modular homes or, they have to go around, and it adds to the cost of bringing those buildings to the reservation. So if we could have, a beam type bridge where it's open and, we don't have to worry about the truss. It would be more cost effective for us, to be able to do trade with the East River. Okay. The other thing I want to bring up is we have in the Education Committee, and it seems to me it was one other committee. Anyway, the issue of lowering the speed limit, and putting up bus school crossings or whatever you call them, and that's at Ridgeview and LaPlante, because that Highway 212 runs right, through those communities. And we've had almost some near accidents, with the bus stopping there to pick up kids at both locations. And, we've got truck traffic that goes through there, so if we could have some kind of warning signs or a lowering of the speed limit. And we're told that only you can do that. So I'd like to make that a request. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that was a letter that we received from you to review that speed limit as well as those other activities. So we're working on that.
Mr. Dakota?
Morning, Council. Colleagues from South Dakota DOT, General Public. Appreciate everybody for coming and talking about this. I've just got a couple of questions here. Number 10, the roadway considerations. I was just curious, the central alignment has only shown a half. I figured that being a shorter section would probably score a lot higher than the other ones. Not a lot of new payment would be needed. I was just wondering if you could dive into that column, I guess, and explain those considerations. And then also under the constructability, the central alignment was the lowest one for constructability. And then the last question is, are any items on this scale weighted? Would one have more points, versus the other ones?
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, great question. I can tell you the matrix is still in draft mode right now, so we'll continue to refine that, but excellent question. So as a component of the roadway, I think what we need to look at is wherever the new road would start or the new road would end, that roadway segment would be considered in there. So for just as an example, looking at South Alternative Alignment number 2, the central alignment roadway is not the same, but in fairly close distance to the new alignment of where the central alignment would be. So I think that's a part of it, is that the lengths are fairly comparable, although they're not necessarily one-to-one from a roadway characteristic. So there's still pavement and needs that would have to be maintained. But I think that's probably why we're not seeing that as a full circle, I guess, more than anything. And then the other question, are certain areas going to be weighted more than others as we go forward on that? That's going to be something that we'll consider, but generally, I think we're trying to take a look at all the issues together at once. And although something may be the very highest or lowest score, be most preferable or least preferable, the overall preferred alternative may not be the numerical one. There may be other aspects that come into play for when that final alternative is decided. So again, there's different things that'll be coming into play as we move throughout this process. It will be a process, and I appreciate the early coordination on this and look forward to more coordination as we continue to refine. Hopefully that helped to address your questions, Dakota. I think I had them written down. Thank you.
Mrs. Hall?
Good afternoon, Tribal Council, South Dakota Roads, and General Public. My question is, we currently have action that we take our roads back, and I see that the maintenance of this portion of this road you guys are talking about. So who here is the South Dakota's transportation's head boss? Are you in the room? You are. So you are aware of those actions that we have taken as a tribe as well, right?
I missed the first part of it. Could you repeat the first part?
My question was, how is this going to affect us having a standing law to take our roads back? That's all the roads. That's Highway 212, 63, 65, the ones that in the exterior boundaries of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. So I see us asking a lot of questions about speed bump signs or speed limits. That's Dakota. In my opinion, he is our transportation in this territory. So whatever he needs to fix these roads, that direct funding needs to come to our tribe, not to the state of South Dakota. And we have those laws here. And I want to know when that funding is going to come. So this bridge talk, yeah, it may be just District 6 that it's sitting on, but it affects all of us. And the reason why it affects us all is them are our bottom lands that are continue being taken. So you're going to continue to take those bottom lands, and you're not going to look at anything on these maps right here doesn't show the environmental effect. One, our pejuta, our medicine that is constantly being eroded by your guys' construction of taking of our good lands. Two, my relatives live right down the road and no one speaks of them, and that's our herd. Tatanka, our pete oyate. And these routes are going to affect them. And yet no one has talked about them. Wana, I come from the Pete Oshpaye, the Buffalo Nation. Our roads, they belong to us. This is not a fort anymore. This is not a prisoner of war camp. This is part of the Great Sioux Nation, and we need our direct funding. And everybody here should be fighting for that direct funding for transportation. Lila Wopala Tonka.
Mr. Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Bo, for touching on those very important topics. So I would argue that the roads here are trust resources. So, and that the tribe does, maintain some type of ownership of them. So the issues I have were on IIJA year 3 of procurement for TY24, and a lot of I feel bad for a lot of other tribes because they're behind. Our director is doing a good job with the efforts of KLJ and making sure these projects are shovel ready. And as you can see, a lot of the roads are getting paved here. I know I went to DC a couple years ago and fought for better roads, and I'm sure those are just additional efforts. I mean, there's been others before us that have done that as well. So with this IIJA is a lot of money, and I don't know how much surplus funding is going to be left at the end, but I really think that this 1806 idea needs to go. It needs to get designed, shovel ready, so it can get funded. Maybe TY26, year 5 of the IIJA. That's going to be a major project, and that's something I'd like to see happen. With the previous procurements of the IIJA, I know year 1, the Great Plains region received one of the biggest allocations of the IIJA, which was great. But some of the issues so far with these projects that are coming through with IIJA funding is that the inflation is being detrimental to local contractors and I call them carnival contractors. They're coming in, they're outbidding our contractors. So like for this highway project that happened over between Faith and Dupree, there were hardly any local contractors working on the projects because we got a carnival contractor bid so low. They were able to find all these low workers. They're coming in, living out of their trucks, not spending any money at our fuel pumps. Hardly, they bring everything. They take our money for these projects. This IIJA is supposed to be to restable or to reboost the economies. It was a detrimental effect from the COVID-19 global economic collapse. And IIJA was an effort to reboost and rebolster these local economies. So how does the South Dakota DOT justify low bid and these carnival contractors coming in, taking all the money? They're doing a good job on the projects, but they're not leaving anything for us. There's no labor force being created from these projects. This money's not even staying. We fought for $3 million worth of money yesterday, and because we want to keep this money here. So that's one of the things I'd like to see is that we no longer allow the low bid to come in and bring all outside guys in. I'm gonna end on this because I know we got time, but so we got an action in District 6 to build 60 homes and to find a developer and a bank to finance the project. And I got a hold of a contractor, developer in Minnesota, Minneapolis. And I asked him, you know, how do they do it? He's a developer. He also sells concrete. He's a contractor for concrete. And what he said is, he sells concrete and he reinvests their company earnings to housing development in their area. Why aren't the prime contractors doing that here? You know, why are we not getting some ROI on our big major projects that are coming through the reservation? All the money is leaving these gas stations, these trucks. I know it's not you guys' area, but these trucks are coming on the reservation and they're not leaving nothing, not even paying the fuel tax. And who gets the IFTA? I don't even think the tribe gets IFTA. So there's a lot of issues with these major contracts, this major expenditures from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to re-bolster local economies, and we're not getting the intended purpose of that. And I missed the Washington, D.C. trips where they came around and talked about, you know, see if this money is meeting its intended purpose. So I'd like to see, we got action from Land Committee to because buying it from the Black Hills and these big carnival contractors coming in and hauling this aggregate in, they're not hiring local truckers, they're not hiring other local contractors, and they're not buying gas at the gas stations. And I don't want this to be, oh, you guys, prime contractors, the next bid letting meeting, we're going to tell you guys to buy a cheeseburger at the gas station so these Indians can be quiet. I want real, strong, long-term effects that are going to be positive for our economy for several generations to come. And that's going to come with policy, and that's going to come with the support and nation-building efforts between the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, the state of South Dakota, and the Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just maybe, thank you for the question and a lot of great points there. And you mentioned IIJA, and as you know, that was passed by Congress, and those are federal dollars that come through the state. And by federal requirement, we cannot do local contractor preference for low bid. So that's something that, again, as you've gone to DC and discussed that with them, it's something that they will have to fix. I don't have that control under my authority.
And I think we understand that. And however, we would prefer our guys getting the work, our local tribal members getting the work, getting the contracts that occur on our reservation. And we see you did the paving from La Plante going east, and that was, you know, prior year, but there was nothing this year on our reservation. The Lantry Bridge, and there is a little drop after you go through that Lantry Bridge, which is kind of strange that it's brand new, that there's a bump in there. It didn't seem like that was should be happening. And then coming through town here, there's, I don't know when you're getting to Eagle Butte, but there's several of these street lights that are out. I know our Dakota and his staff were doing the repairs on those and paying for those when they are state lights basically. And when you do come through, you see the ditches. There's some huge ditches that go on through our through Eagle Butte here. But when you go to the next town over, whether it's Gettysburg or Faith, you know, there's no such thing. So kind of feel like that's an issue. Even in Dupree, there's the ditches, there's no sidewalks, there's no curb or gutter, there's no streetlights. There is here in Eagle Butte just for this section right here, but further out, you know, that as an issue. And I don't know when you're coming back to Cheyenne River to do some more paving, but it seems like we're the last on the list. I don't know if that's, I'm just assuming that, or it just feels like that. So I prefer you would have kept going from La Plante through the reservation. So,
Mr. Chairman, I believe the project through Eagle Butte here has been let. If I'm not Can you help me with that?
Yep. There's a project planned just on the west side of Eagle Butte, which should be going on here this summer. So that project for paving, this coming summer. So we just let, I believe it's Eagle Butte West, if I remember right, John, is that correct?
Yeah, it would be west of 3, and then also Highway 63 from the junction of 212 north to north of Moore River. We got it next summer.
And the reconstruction through Eagle Butte is in the planning stages right now. Again, the letter you provided was very helpful from council regarding intersection configuration and other things you'd like to see, especially with the development planned off to the north. So as we're working through the planning process on that, it's our goal to get that out in the next 4 or 5 years for reconstruction. Again, taking in the input.
Good. Any other comments or questions for DOT? We thank you for coming.
Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the Dakota and the DOT start working on paving at 1806 through the reservation. That'd be my motion.
Let's refer that to the roads. He said he would get us more information on why that stopped, or it did, and then I think we reconvene when we have that information.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and refer. Thank you.
We've got a motion to refer by Mr. Russo, second by Mr. Underwoods to the Roads Committee. All in favor? It's regarding the Highway 1806. Mr. Russo wants that considered to go through the reservation. And we're going to get more information from the DOT. Motion's to refer to the Roads Committee. All in favor, raise your hand. 12 yes, 1 not voting, 1 absent. Motion carries. Thank you. Or you have something, Madam Secretary?
Thank you. I'll have to look for the motion, but then it was about like 3 or 4 years ago, council approved to have a 4-lane through Dupree. And I think Dakota should have that motion too, and I haven't seen it since then, but council did pass to widen that area in Dupree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, DOT. Thanks for coming. Council, let's take a 1-hour break for lunch.
Mr. Chairman, Jill's bringing menudo and some chili for anybody who wants to eat.